You pick your range the same way you pick your truck, your political opinions. You find one that already agrees with you, and you call it the right choice. 12 ranges. 12 tribes who decided everybody else is doing it wrong. One of them's yours. Let's ride. The Fudd Club, if your range opened before the Korean War and demands 3 personal references just to get on the wait list, you're not a shooter. You're a custodian of a tradition you had nothing to do with building. Board of Directors, 6 retired gentlemen who exist primarily to table discussions about whether the 1952 bylaws permit semi-automatic pistols on the pistol range. Answer is always next year. Drawing from a holster sits somewhere between a fire code violation and a personal insult. The RSO, a man named Gerald, has occupied that post since 1974 and will walk the full length of the range to have a word about your tempo. I got invited once. Beautiful property. Shot 4 rounds at a comfortable pace, and Gerald had covered that ground before the brass hit the floor. 20 minutes on how things have always been done. You're not just shooting there. You're defending a civilization that clocked out around 1987. The commercial indoor range, 14 lanes, rental Glocks with triggers worn down to something between a reset and a suggestion, and a mandatory safety video that treats you like you found the firearm in a storm drain this morning. The RO is 22, 3 weeks in, actively texting between relays. Lane 9 has a guy who swept the entire room on his draw and nobody said a word. On a Saturday, the lane next to you holds a couple on their first date, and he is standing behind her with both hands on her shoulders doing that thing. Every shooter alive has seen that thing. Every one of us has had the exact same thought: a range, a retail floor, and a slow motion liability concern sharing one ventilation system. But this format brought more people into shooting than any private club with a 3-month wait list ever could. You're not just renting a lane, you're keeping the whole industry's lights on. The BM spot, no RO, no ceasefires, no backstop, no satisfying explanation for the washing machine at the 50-yard line with 300 rounds in it. Someone shot a couch, several televisions, and what appears to be a 1997 desktop tower. The forum community runs a cleanup every spring, fills a dumpster, drives home satisfied, rolls past the same site 8 days later to find 3 new recliners and a broken safe somebody drove out specifically to shoot. The guy who hauled the couch, you are the reason we lose things. You're not just shooting public land. You're borrowing it from everyone who comes after you, and some of you are genuinely terrible borrowers. Your buddy's back 40 acres, a berm that stops a .50 BMG, steal at every distance. Cold beer in the cooler, and exactly one rule: don't shoot toward the barn. That rule carries the full moral gravity of scripture because everyone present understands precisely what is protected. I've stood on private land at dusk with a cold drink and a hot barrel and thought every commercial range I'd ever paid for felt, by comparison, like waiting in line at the DMV. About 4% of shooters actually have this. The other 96 are at 14-lane facilities, staring at the ceiling and dreaming. You're not just shooting there. You are living the thing the rest of this sport spends its weekends fantasizing about. The competition range you drove out to shoot paper. You leave with a scorecard, 2 unsolicited grip breakdowns, and a quiet crisis of confidence that'll follow you home and sit on the couch with you. The timer operator has a ghost holster, a CR speed belt that costs more than your first 3 guns combined, and an opinion about your draw that he will share during the walkthrough, at debrief, and one final time in the parking lot while you're trying to leave. A friend of mine got absolutely lit up at IDPA by a 60-year-old retired postal worker in a bucket hat running a bone stock M&P, sat in the truck for a while, reconsidered some things. The competition crowd will make you better faster than almost anything else in this sport, if you survive long enough to absorb the feedback. You're not just competing, you're paying to find out in precise numerical terms exactly how average you are. The bench rest range 1 shot, wait, adjust, another shot. The bench rest range strips out every variable that isn't the cartridge. Then the regulars spends the afternoon arguing about that cartridge. No standing, no drawing, no movement, no portion of what most people recognize as fun. 1 round every several minutes through a scope that cost more than a serviceable used pickup. I used to think this crowd was taking things too far. Then I watched a bench rest shooter call wind at 600 yards with nothing but a flag and 40 years of feel, and he called it right. The whole thing shifted sideways. You're not just shooting tight groups, you're doing the tedious, disciplined, unfilmable work that actually makes the rest of this sport possible. The gun store range 8 lanes, bolted directly behind the retail floor, watched over by the same guy who spent the last 10 minutes trying to sell you a $60 holster for a pistol you've owned 6 years. They're ammo only, 30% over market. Target carrier squeaks on every run. Your brass stays in their trap. Every trigger pull feels like a transaction. Every relay feels like a graded performance with a financial interest in the outcome. You're not just shooting there, you're a customer who also happens to be armed. The Trap Club over-under shotguns, worn smooth from decades of use, deeply held convictions about choke tubes and shot string dispersion. Nobody runs a shot timer. You call pull, the bird breaks, you either smoke it or you miss it, and the scorekeeper marks the card with the same face either way. The public county range, $15 at the gate. Mandatory ceasefire every 20 minutes so one person who forgot his targets can walk down range, which takes 6 minutes while you stand with hands visible staring at the berm. I've had more strangers work through basic firearm problems at public ranges than anywhere else in this sport. And I mean that without condescension, because most of these folks are trying their level best and just needed one person to spend 5 minutes pointing them right. That's not a small thing. You're not just shooting there. You're in a room with everybody who decided to take this seriously at roughly the same time, all figuring it out together. The long-range precision facility, 500 yards, 1,000 yards. One round every few minutes while a Kestrel, a ballistic calculator, and a decade of log dope tell you exactly where to hold. Getting set up meaningfully runs $3,000 before the wind meter, rear bag, bipod, or the notebook that'll take 10 years to fill. Calling wind at 800 yards isn't something you pick up in a weekend. That's a skill that compounds over years of slow, cold, unglamorous repetition that makes no good video content and makes you genuinely dangerous at distances most people consider theoretical. Not a single roast in me for this crowd. Every yard was earned the hard way. You're not just shooting distance. You're doing the one thing in this sport that cannot be bought, borrowed, or faked for a camera. The Vegas rental range, the SEAL Team 6 experience at $290 includes a video of yourself looking very serious in protective eyewear while a Special Forces weapon attempts to exit your hands. It is exactly, precisely, completely what it looks like, a theme park. Real shooters call it a carnival. Tourists call it the best part of the trip. Both groups are correct, and there is no contradiction there whatsoever. I'm not going to pretend there's anything tactical about dumping 7.62 into paper at 15 yards while a stranger films it on an iPad. But I'm also not going to claim I didn't grin like an idiot the one time I saw it. You're not just shooting rentals in Vegas. You're buying a specific kind of joy, and the price is more than fair. The Tactical Training Facility barricades, a shoot house with functional doors, moving targets, lateral drills, reloads on the move. The most genuinely useful range environment on this list. Law enforcement trains there, military units run courses there, and Dave from accounting drives 2 hours every other Saturday in full multicam, plate carrier adjusted twice in the parking lot, Salomon boots, spotless, battle belt configured from a YouTube video. Dave has seen every John Wick film 14 times and refers to magazine changes as reloads with a weight that implies an operational history he does not technically have. The instructors know the difference, they don't say that out loud. I'm not here to bury Dave because I was Dave at 32, right down to the tactical polo shirts I'd rather not revisit. The gear was real, the reps were not. That's the whole gap. You're not just training there. You're either building the actual skill or building the costume, and only one of those protects you when the moment is real. So, subscribe and see you in the next video.